So, if you've ever worked in business or you've worked with marketing before, you would know about the word niching or to niche. And basically, a niche is like putting your hand up and saying, this is what I want to be known for. And that sounds really great. But what happens if you're an all-rounder and you have lots of interests and so many different things that you like to do? What do you do then? In this episode of Creativity Uncovered, I plan to find out. So hi, my name is Abby Gatling and welcome to Creativity Uncovered. This is a podcast where I uncover how everyday people find inspiration and get inventive and open their imagination. Basically, I want to find out how people use creative solutions at home, at work, at play, and everything in between. And the goal for my podcast is that by the end of it, you will be armed with a whole suite of tried and tested ways to summon creativity the next time that you need it. Now, today, I'm joined by Hollie Arnett, and we are going to discuss her creativity, and I'm so excited for this. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. And so, okay, I mentioned niching in the intro, and this has just kind of stayed in my brain since the last time we chat, because you're someone who has done, not kind of done that. You've done that periodically, but you've actually had a really long and winding journey with your creativity and covered so many different creative pursuits before sort of landing in a particular area. And I want to talk about that journey, where that's taken you, and then let's talk about what you're doing now. So tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So I have, I guess, always been creative. I could, you can ask my parents, my sister. I feel like I've just always identified as a creative person, as a child, as a teenager. I've just loved being creative in any type of way. And when I left school, I decided to become a designer. I studied graphic design at university. And all throughout university, I was freelancing and building my first business, or what I launched my business as, which was a hand lettering and typography studio, because I am in love with and am still in love with letters and illustrating letters and typography in all of its forms. And I actually have like family history of like printmaking and typography as well. So my dad and my granddad were printmakers, and so I have that family history tied in there. So I started my business as a hand lettering and typography studio, and so that I got a lot of interest in that for people who wanted me to hand letter their logos, which then, as you start making logos, you realize that a brand is so much more than that. You need colors and fonts and patterns and imagery and all of that stuff. So that evolved into doing full brand identities. And then I realized that in order to do that, you need brand strategy. And I was kind of already doing that. I was asking questions and trying to understand the people behind the brand and what they wanted and all of that. So then I started doing brand strategy in a more formalized way. And then I realized that's what I really, really loved to do. And what I was quite good at was actually understanding the brand as a whole and the big picture and everything. And I also loved coaching the people that I was working with and helping them to not only understand their brand, but how they could achieve their goals and what was stopping them from getting there and all of that stuff as well. And then I realized that the people that I love to work with was people like me. Like my favorite clients were the artists and the makers and the creatives, the people who wanted to take the thing that they were so passionate about and share it with the world and like help other people feel seen and to feel joy and color and joy, like happiness out of something that they've made. And so then I was like, okay, this is the thing. This is what I want to do, is I want to do brand strategy and coaching for creatives. And so that's what I do now. That's what I do with Maker and Moxie. And then very recently, I've come kind of full circle back around as well. And I've started another side business to do illustration and hand lettering as well for creator businesses. So I'm coming back to being an artist again as well, because I missed that side of like being what my clients are as well, and being able to be an artist again. So that's my journey in a bit of a nutshell. Is a lot of pivoting, but a lot of, changing my niche, and being able to establish myself again and again, and adjust slightly what I'm doing. But yeah, that's where I've come from and where I'm at now.
I love it. I love that story because it's kind of, you can see looking back that is this evolution that really makes a lot of sense. But I can imagine at the time, as you said before, it's like pivoting and just trying things out and reinventing yourself as you go. And now you've come all the way back to the beginning. I just think that's so cool. So
Yeah.
I think that's awesome that you have this heritage of, printmaking. And tell me, how does that relate to the lettering and how you first started? Was there like family pressure to do that, or was it just that you'd been exposed to it, you loved it, or how did that happen?
Actually, like, not at all. There was no pressure or anything, and it was something that as a kid I wasn't really aware of. Like, I knew my dad did, like, he printed magazines and newspapers and like that sort of stuff, but I had no idea that him and my granddad did any of the like old school printmaking, like that they had worked with like lead type and all of that stuff. But when I was in university and when I went to visit the university that I went to, I walked into the type room and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And this is where I need to be. They had these like massive printmaking machines and drawers and drawers full of different lead type. And I just was like, I need to be here. I need to get to play with this stuff. And when I went to that university and I started playing with it, and I, started talking to my dad about it, because he did a lot of art when he was in college, or in like the equivalent of high school in the UK. When I started talking to him about it, that's when I sort of started to realize that he had done that. He started talking to me about his history, and he gave me like his old keys that tighten the frames that you create when you put your lead type together. He has like really old keys that you use for that. So he gave those to me and was like, here, you can use them now. So like that was really cool. But there was no pressure or anything, and I didn't have any knowledge of that before that. It was just like naturally I had kind of found it, and then it was something that we got to talk about, and I guess it was just naturally in my blood somewhere. And it was just cool that we got to talk about it, and it became something that we got to bond over and nerd out about together.
I love that. And you've got like the ceremonial handing over the baton of the keys.
Yes. yeah, exactly.
That is beautiful, like iconography there.
Yeah.
So you kind of were always creative and you found yourself in that space. It sounds like you have this kind of yearning just to create, and that's what's taken you on these different journeys. Would that be right?
Yeah, I always describe my creativity, and I feel kind of like I'm being a little bit too poetic sometimes when I describe it, but it's true. Like, I describe creativity like breathing to me. Like, it feels like I have to create to live. Like, it just feels so integral to living and existing to me that when I'm not doing it, I'm not myself and I'm not alive. And like, there was a couple of years ago, I got concussed, and there was a period of time where I couldn't create. I was really struggling to think and just survive. And my brain, I just like physically couldn't do anything, and mentally couldn't get ideas or anything out. And I was talking to my therapist and I was like, I don't feel like myself and I don't feel like I am living my life because I'm not creating. And it actually feels like breathing and living to me. So yeah, that's how much it feels like who I am and just, yeah, what I'm meant to do is creating to me. So definitely. Yeah.
Wow. Absolutely heartbreaking that firstly, I love that creativity is breathing for you. That just really shows that it's such an integral part of your life. But how heartbreaking when you come across this time where you actually can't do it. How did you navigate through that and get back into being creative again?
I just had to find like new ways to create. I had to work with a therapist, which I highly recommend always, if you have the privilege to. But I just had to find new ways to create. It was like, okay, I can't do what I used to do, like designing or creating content or however I normally create. So it was like, okay, what are smaller, different ways I can create? Can I do some coloring in? Can I just think creatively? Can I try and solve a puzzle? Can I do other little things that still are creative and exercising that creative muscle, but are, just not how I normally would create. And so that was a helpful way of reframing what was really difficult into a way that was like, okay, creativity can look so many different ways. And so it was like, what can it look like in this current season? And how can I get back to quote unquote normal creativity in small incremental steps? So that was how I did that.
Wow. That's such an interesting way to approach it because, I 100% agree with you that there's so many different ways to be creative, and you are not able to do your regular state of creativity, finding another path through. It was interesting how you said puzzles because I feel like puzzles are really a creative thing because you're having to be so visually and spatially aware. That's amazing. Was there the additional pressure on you at that time because you do make your living through your creativity? Did that add additional pressure at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's obviously the practical pressure of my income comes from this and I physically cannot do that right now. So that was very hard. But yeah, the pressure of I'm supposed to use this creativity to as my business and I can't do that. And so it was really, really frustrating for me to not be able to do that. And also I think as business owners, I'm sure other people can relate to this, but my identity is so tied to what I do. When I introduce myself to anybody, I'm like, hi, I'm Hollie. I'm an artist. I'm a brand strategist. I'm a coach for creatives. I always introduce myself as what I do. And it's that's who I am. And so many things, if I was to describe myself and describe who I am, so many of those things that I would describe would be about the creative things that I do. And so when those things are taken away or you cannot do those things, it's who am I? And also what value do I bring without those things? This is getting very deep. But what value do I bring and what is my identity without what I do as my job and what my business is? So when my business is taken away, when my creativity is taken away, when what I do is not what I can do right now, who am I and what am I still worth, So those were very difficult questions, and I was very frustrated at the time. And so that's why working with a therapist again was very helpful, because, it was, I had to try to figure out I'm still valuable. I'm still adding a lot to like the people around me. I'm still a whole great person. It's still, I can still do a lot of other great things, even though I can't do my work right now. And like getting back into my work, I was like, okay, I can do little things. I might not be able to like write a full brand strategy right now or like design a full brand, but I can do little things to help my clients, or I can do like little things here and there. And so I was just trying to, accept those little things and make those little mental changes to try to accept those things.
Yes. Wow. That is so interesting that your identity is so enveloped by your creativity, and when that gets taken away, I can imagine it was making you ask those deep questions of yourself. But what was interesting there is that also your business is part of your identity now as well. So was there ever a time, do you think, where you could have pursued your creativity on the side and then had another career, or do you think that was just never going to happen, that creativity was everything and and your career had to be a part of that?
I think for me, that's always been the direction I was headed. Like, as I said, when I was like in high school and university, I've been freelancing since high school on the side. And I like since then had the dream to be self-employed. I just always wanted to have my own business. I wanted to work for myself. I am a huge introvert. Like, I love people. I love working with people. I love meeting new people. Like, I love people, but I re-energize by myself. And so working by myself was like, that's the goal. That's what I want for myself. And I have had, like, at the start of my career, I did work in other businesses. I've had that experience and it was great. I think it was really valuable. But it just reaffirmed that wasn't for me. And like my partner, he's the complete opposite to me. He works a full-time job and then he uses that money to fuel his creative endeavors in the evenings and the weekends. And he loves that. And like that's works perfectly for him. And he would hate the opposite. He's like, that would kill my creativity if it was my full-time job. It would ruin it for me. But I, like, every time I've worked a full-time job, I just spend the whole day thinking about my own stuff and wishing I was not there. So, or wishing I was doing something else that I was actually passionate about. I do have like clients that I work on now and I'm like stoked that I'm working on them. So I don't mean that, but I just mean like, I just want to be working on things that I have chosen and that I'm passionate about. So yeah, it was never really a choice for me. Never really an option.
Yeah, but it's true. Like there are people one way or the other. They want to keep their creativity separate, and they feel that that's like, sacrosanct, that you don't want to diminish it by being paid for it. But then there's other people like, well, actually, I love it so much. Why can't I do it all the time and be paid for it because I'm good at it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's an interesting thing with creativity, and at some point, if you want to make money out of it, you have to lend your brain to be more business minded. So I suppose like your evolution of your creative journey, you're like, oh, okay, branding is more than just a logo and lettering. It's this whole other thing, and you've had to teach yourself that. Was that a hard shift for you to try and move on from purely the beauty and the aesthetics into a more strategic minded creativity, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I do understand what you mean. I don't think so, because the degree that I studied was visual communication, and the way that was taught was very strategic minded. So it wasn't just like about visual. It was like, how do you communicate visually? So there was a lot of strategy behind that. It was like, okay, why are you communicating this way? And if you want to achieve this message, how do you do that? And like, there was a lot of thinking, and the same kind of strategic thinking that you do in brand strategy. Like, that's what we were doing at university. And so, in my degree. And so I was kind of already in that mindset and already doing that. And as I was doing brand identities, as I said, I was kind of already doing brand strategy without realizing that's what I was doing. And that's what happens to a lot of branding people. They're already doing brand strategy without knowing that's what they're doing. Or without having kind of like a formalized process around it. So then it was just about, looking at other people who were already doing brand strategy and going, okay, how are you actually doing this process of brand strategy? Because, I'm already doing it. I just need to know, like, how long are you doing the workshops, and what are you charging for this kind of thing? And like, are there any exercises I could include that I'm not already doing, like that kind of thing? But the actual mindset around it, I think I was quite lucky that the degree that I did was more than just the visuals, and more than just, teaching you how to like use the programs and stuff. It was very much thinking in that way already. So it primed me in that way, I think.
Yeah, that's good, because it is, I think sometimes if you do start so far on one side and you have no exposure to the other, that is a really hard jump to make, not only to run your own business, because there's so many skills that you need to run your own business, but to also do branding from a strategic perspective. So it was great that you were prepped for that with your university degree. And so I mentioned before niching, and this is, a key part of branding is carving out what you want to be known for and who you work with, and setting yourself apart from your competition. As someone who has like a lot of different interests, and your interests are changing over time, how do you create a brand personality strategy when the things are changing all the time like that? How have you been able to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So like, each time that I have pivoted, each of those different stages in my career so far, the key thing that I always ask myself is like, what do I want to be known for? Like, if I am going to be recommended, or, if I want people to refer me to somebody, or if I want people to be talking about me in a room, what do I want them to be telling their colleague or their friend? Because that's what I want, right? Is I want clients, or I want more customers, or I want, all of that sort of thing. So I need to be thinking about what I want that conversation to be. So that includes, what do I want them to tell them that I do, first of all? And what do I want them to tell them that experience is like? And what do I want them to tell them that will do for them? So firstly, that should be pretty simple in terms of like, what do I do? So right now it's like brand strategy and coaching for creatives, right? For you might have a range of different things. Like, that's okay if you don't have a set niche. You can be kind of vague. You might be an artist. Like, that doesn't mean you have to limit yourself to like, I only do 3D art in Blender and only do characters in one style, you know, like you can just say I'm an artist or something. That's okay. Just you need to figure out, what do you do? The next thing is like, what is that experience like? What do you want people to tell other people what working with you or buying from you is like, or what the vibe is like? So with me, I think people are like, you know, she's bubbly, she's friendly, she's really helpful. I hope these are what people say about me. I think these are what people say. Yeah. You know, these are the kind of things that I hope people say about me, and that will attract people who are looking for somebody like me, right? There are other people who might be looking for somebody who's very serious, straightforward, doesn't giggle, you know, and that's a different person who's not me. So I want to make sure that the people who want a giggly, fun, helpful, friendly coach will find me. And then lastly, I want to make sure that they know what this experience will do for them, right? So if you're selling products or whatever, it might be that it's going to light up your living room with a piece of art, or it's going to make you feel seen and heard. Or like for me, I want people to get to grow their audience and to get more opportunities and more sales as artists and makers, right? And that's what working with me is going to get them. So these three things are like the key things. And if I can build a brand around that and make sure that everything I do is constantly repeating those messages. So I'm creating content that's talking about brand strategy and the fact that I do strategy and coaching, and that I'm always talking about branding over and over and over again. I also make sure that like the way that I talk and the way that my visuals come across reflects the way that I wanted people to feel, right? So I said I wanted it to feel bubbly and fun and friendly and helpful. So I hope you can go to my website and Instagram and stuff and see that hopefully it comes across like that, and the way that I talk and the way that my copy feels comes across like that. And I consistently do that so that people always get that feeling whenever they interact with my brand. And then the experience side of things, or like the transformation, I continue to talk about those things. So I'm always talking about growing your audience. I'm always talking about how to make more sales and how working with me will help you do that, and how you can get more customers and get more opportunities and all of these things. So whatever stage your business is at, you just keep asking yourself these questions, and it's okay if those things evolve then, because then you can just re-answer the question and readjust those answers and adjust your brand from there. I might have gone a little bit off there. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think that's really good. I think you're so right that you can be doing a whole range of different things, but you still have to be really clear on your focus and really dive down into that as part of your marketing. Otherwise, you're just going to confuse people.
Yeah.
And consistency was the other thing that I heard come through. That is like, you say it once, you say it again, and you know, you have your messaging across all of your platforms. It has to be consistent and be telling the same story.
Yeah. And the thing that I forgot, sorry, about your original question was about what do you do if you have you do multiple things, right? And this comes up a lot because a lot of the people that I work with are artists, and a lot of artists have a lot of passions and a lot of interests, and they do change a lot. And that's fine, because the things, your niche doesn't have to be what you do. Like, you and your personality and who you are can be your niche. So like what you bring to your art can be what makes you different. So, you know, there's, I just had someone on my podcast recently, and they are an artist and they do like so many different things. They do lettering, they sell fonts, they do speaking, they do like circus performances, like so many different things. It's unreal. But the thing that people go to them for is like their perspective and their unique approach and unique thinking and brain because nobody thinks like Meg and nobody has a creative brain like Meg. Like Meg's creativity is specifically Meg's. And so as an artist, your niche can be like your creativity. So, you know, don't worry about having to specifically be like, you know, mine is quite specific. I do brand strategy and coaching for creatives, and you can get quite specific like that. But you can also, like I said, be a bit more broad. Like I'm an artist, but you could be like, I'm an artist, but my unique niche is like the way I do things. And you can think about what is that way that you do things. Like, do you draw things in a certain way, or do you have like a unique way of viewing things, or do you have a unique subject matter that you always draw, or like what is it that you bring that is unique? That's what can be your niche, rather than the actual thing that you do, and that can bring you a lot more flexibility so that you don't have to feel trapped into only doing one thing, and you can give yourself a lot more freedom so that you can change things over time, and you can, you know, try new mediums or try new formats in the future. So that's what I can recommend if you're feeling a little bit trapped by like, oh, I have to say I only do one thing, or I only serve one type of client, or I only have these certain customers, because that can feel kind of limiting. Then yeah, try maybe viewing yourself as your niche.
I think that's great. That's a great perspective, I think, on branding is that, yeah, because, you know, if you are an all-rounder, for example, me, I'm an all-rounder. I do lots of different things. And people go, no, actually, you should just only offer one service. I don't want to, because I'll be bored offering the one service all the time.
Yeah.
And so I guess like if you focus yourself as being your specific brand, that's how it can evolve and how it can be applied to all these different areas. Yeah. And I can imagine that's what happened with you and your journey through your business, is that you've been able to evolve your brand based on that because you've been the constant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned your podcast before, Brand Your Passion. Tell me, when did that come into your journey, and what do you talk about on the podcast?
Yeah, so I started my podcast in 2020. So I think July 2020. I don't know why I started in the middle of the pandemic, but I did for some reason. Bored apparently. But yeah, I started it in 2020 and it has been going since then. And at the end of last year, I hit 100 episodes. So that was awesome. And on the podcast, I alternate between solo episodes where I teach you, the listener, and interviews with amazing artists and creatives who have branded their passion amazingly. And so the goal is that with those two things combined, people listening will leave like inspired and knowing that if other people can like brand their passion, that you can too, and that you have examples and exact steps for how to do it. So that's the plan. That's what I do, and that's what the podcast is all about.
That's cool. And that seems to relate very closely to your coaching business that you have now. That seems an interesting step that you've taken from doing the doing and actually doing the branding to then now helping coach other creatives. Was that a tough step for you to jump into?
Not really. I realized like I didn't want to do too much more of the doing. Like I said, I like wanted to become more of an artist myself and start like doing lettering and stuff again. And also I just love empowering artists and creatives to brand their own businesses. And so and I've always been a teacher. Like before I discovered design in high school, I thought I was going to be an English teacher. And like when I was a kid, I always used to make my sister play schools with me, and I would be the teacher. And so I always thought I was going to be a teacher. And all throughout, like freelancing and everything, I've always like taught what I know. So I've always had a blog. I've always like vlogged or had some kind of like documentation thing where I've tried to teach and share what I know. So I've tried to teach other people. And so, yeah, I've just always taught in some kind of capacity anyway, and shared content and all of that stuff. And so creating like the group programs and stuff that I have now is just like feels normal and natural to me. So yeah, I don't know, just feels great.
That's cool. That's cool. And if anyone who is listening wants to get in touch, if you want help running your creative businesses, I'll pop the links to everything in our show notes so you can access that. Well, thank you so much, Hollie, for joining me today. I think it's been wonderful to hear about your journey and see all the different ways that your creativity has come out throughout your entire working career.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've had a great time, and hopefully, people listening have found it interesting and helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'll pop the link to your podcast as well so they can keep learning as they go. And I want to say thanks to everyone who's actually tuned in today to Creativity Uncovered. If you enjoyed this episode, please do jump onto Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating or review. This will help other people find the podcast and get us to share our message out a bit more widely. And as always, please do get in touch if this episode has inspired you to pursue your creativity, because I love, love, love to hear your stories and see how they play out. But until next time, take care. If you've made it this far, a huge thank you for your support and tuning into today's episode. Creativity Uncovered has been lovingly recorded on the land of the Cubby Cubby people, and we pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. This podcast has been produced by my amazing team here at Crisp Communications, and the music you just heard was composed by James Gatling. If you liked this episode, please do share it around and help us on our mission to unlock more creativity in this world. You can also hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episode releases.